In early 2019, Health Canada released the new and improved version of the Canadian Food Guide. The guide is a tool designed to promote healthy eating through several nutritional guidelines. When it was released, I quickly realized that if I was still living back in my home community just 2 hours from here, it would be next to impossible to eat a healthy diet while keeping the recommendations in mind. If that was the case for my community, then what about all of the other Indigenous communities in Canada? I argue that the food guide is an example of an expected and uniform cultural ideal that has little application to the diverse regions and cultures in Canada. While I don't deny the basic nutritional recommendations, I do believe it fails to address the hundreds of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities, all living with different circumstances. For example, there are those who can't afford or don't have access to the recommended foods. There are those who are fighting to protect their traditional territories and food systems, like the Wet'suwet'en Nation. There are those who can't make water their drink of choice because they don't have access to clean drinking water, like Shoal Lake. Not to mention all of the other incredible impacts of capitalism, colonialism, and climate change. How can a guide make recommendations that aren't feasible for so many? It is easy to fall into unhealthy habits when your reality and identity aren't reflected in the collective ideology of health. I suggest that Indigenous peoples be provided the opportunity to create their own food guides that reflect their realities and hopes for the future of food and health in their communities. This means acknowledging food practices and ceremony, reflecting the modern Indigenous experience and custom to their diversity. By creating a one-of-a-kind food guide that does all of these things, communities can address community health in a more holistic way, engaging in community development, connecting with culture and language, and protecting local ecosystems. This is exactly what I plan to do in my community this summer by creating a food guide that focuses on the strengths, goals, and hopes in my community, utilizing a Korean decolonizing lens for land, food, and health. By doing so, we can begin to acknowledge all of the historical implications of colonization and the policies and laws that have come with it. I can imagine this happening in my community, but can you imagine making food decisions with the ease, the confidence, and the ability of self-determination? Thank you, miigwech, ahai.